Hello everyone and welcome to an amazing game that was played on board 4 of round 2 of this year's FIDE Grand Swiss. It is Serbian Grandmaster Alexandr Predke with the white pieces against Polish Grandmaster Jan-Krzysztof Duda. Let's check it out, a beautiful attacking game, you guys will enjoy it. So pawn to d4 by Alexandr for his first move. We have knight to f6, pawn to c4, e6, we have knight to f3 and pawn to d5. Transposing into the Queen's Gambit decline, we have knight to c3, the 3 knights variation, and there are many great continuations here for black. Here you could go for the semi-Slav defense, you could go for the semi-Tarash, you could go for the Ragozin with bishop to b4, you could go for the barman defense with knight b to d7, but Duda goes for d captures on c4. It is the Vienna variation, and it is, if you guys are interested, the 6th most popular continuation for black as of today. We have pawn to e4, grabbing the full center as black abandoned it by playing d captures on c4, and now bishop to b4, continuing development, pinning that knight, and now threatening knight captures on e4. So okay, bishop captures on c4, and now knight captures on e4. We have castles trying to give up the c3 knight and then the pawn as well, but Duda actually goes knight back to f6, and these are the 3 most popular moves here: knight captures on c3, bishop captures on c3, and also knight back to f6. Just to give you an example of what happens, well, it's very dangerous to take the pawn. Okay, you take it, let's say rook b1, and now you would really like to castle and enjoy your extra material, but if you do that, then comes queen d3. Attacks the bishop, and once the bishop moves, then comes knight g5. Checkmate is being threatened. Only way to defend is g6, and then comes queen h3. Again, checkmate is being threatened. And okay, you play h5, but now pawn to g4, and the black's position will very quickly open up. Even if you throw in a nice e5 preventing g captures on h5, white will simply take the pawn. So it's not really an issue. And if bishop captures on g4, queen to e3, and the white is just much better here. There is no stopping e6, and white wins this game very quickly. So instead, after castles, well, you could play the double capture. It's very complicated to play it afterwards. So knight back to f6, and now it's again a very popular position, queen to a4. For example, in 2019, Magnus Carlsen played it against Fabiano Caruana in the Sinfield Cup. Their game ended in a draw, and queen to a4 is by far the most popular continuation, and some other continuations are popular like bishop to g5, but here we have the immediate queen to c2, and it is now already as of move 8 that we have a completely new game. So okay, let's see how Duda handles this. He castles to safety, and now rook to d1, nicely defending the pawn, aligning the rook with the black queen, knight b to d7, and now knight to e5. Getting the knight to a very important central square, and usually if you try to capture, it's not gonna end all that well. For example, d captures, now the queen is attacked, and once the knight moves, now the pawn gains all the control here, and black will have very big problems defending this position. The knight comes to e4, and it's really bad for black. So instead, bishop back to e7 by Duda, rook to d3. Just starting out with a nice rook lift. The rook can now come to g3 to h3, and although we sometimes call these moves sort of barbaric, as it's very obvious what you are trying to do. Of course, you want to play, something like rook to h3, attack the knight, capture the knight, and then checkmate the black king on h7. These kind of attacks are very effective, and it's very difficult to defend against them, even though they are very obvious. Knight to b6, attacking the bishop back to b3, and now knight f to d5. We have rook to h3, okay, threatening checkmate on h7, and Duda defends with pawn to f5, so he does have to weaken his position a little bit. Queen to e2 now. Alexandr just continues with his idea. He wants to play queen h5, followed by queen captures on h7, so queen to e8, stopping that, and now bishop to d2. And okay, Duda says you've had your fun, now it's my turn. We have pawn to a5, threatening pawn to a4, so pawn to a4 by Alexandr, and now bishop to f6. Okay, the game just nicely continues. Rook to e1, pawn to c6. Now Duda improving his position, and now look at this. Look at how Alexandr continues the attack. Pawn to g4. Absolutely spectacular. Now, although it seems like you probably should be okay capturing this and opening up the f-file for your rook, it would actually be really bad, because after queen captures on g4 and let's say bishop captures on e5, Rook captures on e5 and knight f6. Seems like, okay, everything is nicely defended. h7 is defended, the e6 pawn is defended, the knight is coming to d5. It's all perfectly fine. Queen h4. And now what do? Queen to e7 or something, doesn't really matter. Bishop g5, now threatening the defender of the h7 pawn. And if h6, now you play knight to e4. And here you have huge problems. H captures on g5. If played, then comes knight captures, the f7 pawn is defended, and there will be no defense against queen to h8 checkmate. So you cannot capture the pawn, the bishop with the pawn, and if you don't capture, there's really not all that much you can do here. So while you can play it, it's not going to be great. So of course he didn't capture on g4. He played bishop captures on e5, and now d captures on e5, and now just bishop to d7. Again, your first idea is, well, I'm getting attacked, so why not eliminate as many pieces as possible? You could try something like knight captures on b3, b captures, and now f captures on g4, but it's still not going to be enough. Even if you get to trade off queens with queen to g6, this is also possible, but the position is just so much better for white because the development of the light square bishop is just not very easy to handle. And if you don't develop the light square bishop, you can't get the rook into the game, and so on. Point is that white will go bishop c2, capture on g6. There's really nothing you can do about that. And if knight to d5, then comes bishop to g5, and if b5, trying to get the queen side to develop somehow, you're just going to play bishop captures on g6, and now there is very little you can do against the rook e4, rook to h4, rook to h8 checkmate. Or maybe it's not going to be checkmate, but you will suffer severe material loss. There's not all that much to play here for black, so it is extremely difficult. So that's why bishop to d7, g captures on f5. Now you cannot allow pawn to f6, so rook captures on f5, and now knight to e4, just bringing another attacker into the game. Also maybe some ideas of knight to d6, forking the queen and the rook. And while you could play rook captures on e5, it's basically giving up the exchange, because after rook to g3 and let's say queen to f7, you will always have this knight to f6 check, and this will just win you the rook as the g pawn is pinned. So queen captures, and you will be up the exchange. So it's one way to do it, and it could be very well black's best way of holding things together, but Duda wanted more. He played queen to e7, and now queen to g4. We have rook captures on e5, and now bishop to c2, shifting the bishop into the attack as well here on the king side. Knight to c4, attacking the bishop here, and here comes, I'm going to show you what Alexandr played. He played bishop to g5, and he attacked Duda's queen on e7. But there is one move that is even more powerful, and I'm not even going to ask you to pause the video because it's just so difficult to find. No one saw this move, and that is knight to c3. Knight to c3, absolutely spectacular. Always difficult to find the move with the knight back. Now you are threatening everything. You're threatening the knight on c4. Also, if the knight moves, the rook on e5 is being threatened. The pawn on h7 is being threatened, and there's just no good way to handle this. If you play rook captures, then bishop captures. You can no longer take the bishop, and again, the h7 pawn and the knight are hanging. And even if you try knight e5 to attack the queen, white will first play queen h5, and then you will have to give up something, as now the knight and pawn are hanging again. And if you play queen f6, then you're going to capture on h7, then you're going to play king f1 to avoid any nasty checks, and now white's position is just much better. The knight is coming to e4, and you're gonna quickly win the game. However, in the game, bishop to g5 was played, and this, although it's a phenomenal move, it does allow Duda a very sneaky move that kind of allows him to get back into the game. I will even ask you to pause the video and try to spot this idea, as Duda did not play it in the game, so, you know, while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on always looking for cool ways to part with your queen. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, of course, it is queen captures on g5. The point being that, okay, if queen captures, you're just going to take the white queen, and if knight captures, you take the rook on e1 as well. So a knight and the rook for a queen, and also you will be up 2 pawns. For example, king g2, now you play h6. You say, okay, you capture my knight, I'm going to capture your knight. And even if white does some tricky moves here to maybe get the black king in the open. Rook f3, check, king to e7. You will play queen captures on c4, but now king to d6, and the king is very safe here. You have a knight and a rook for a queen, and also you're up 2 pawns. This is compensation, definitely compensation in itself. But it was not played in the game after bishop to g5. That's why I said this knight to c3 move was stronger, as Duda had this option, but Duda played queen to b4. He attacked the rook here, but now Alexandr just plays rook to e2. We have pawn to g6, preparing pawn to h5, and now Duda, Alexandr even forces it. Queen to h4, going for h7. We have pawn to h5 and queen back to g3. And now the big problem here is that although you would love to defend your g6 pawn with something like bishop to e8, then comes b3. And now the knight has to move, and the rook on e5 will hang. So you can't really allow that. So queen captures on b2 was played, but now you have to give up something else. Knight to f6 with check. And now if you capture the knight, that's terrible. Then bishop captures, attacks the rook. The rook cannot move because the queen is on b2. Also queen captures on g6 is coming, and the black is just getting checkmated here. So he tried king to g7, and now comes knight captures on h5 with check. And of course the pawn cannot, the knight cannot be captured. If you capture as it did happen in the game ends really quickly. So feel free to pause the video for the final time and win the game for Alexandr Predke. It's actually mate in 3, so while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on always looking for the cleanest and quickest way to checkmate the opponent's king. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is bishop, I'm only kidding, it is bishop to h6. This is what Alexandr played, and now, of course, if you capture, then it's just queen to g6 checkmate. Let's not forget about our good friend, the light square bishop on c2. So he went king to f7, but now comes queen to g7 with check, and he was in this position on move 31 that Jan-Krzysztof Duda resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. One more move can be played, is the only square, king to e8, and then queen to f8 will result in checkmate. So very, very big win by Alexandr Predke. And yeah, if you guys are interested in some of the pairings from round 3, on board 1, Fabiano Caruana will be facing Ervin Lamy, who is playing an incredible tournament so far, defeated Vidit Gujarati in round 1 and Vladimir Fedosev in round 2. So, I mean, absolutely incredible. Erigaisi will be facing Alexis Arana. Yesipenko will be facing Alexandr Predke, the winner of this wonderful round. Alireza Firuja will be facing an international master, Zhalmakhanov from Kazakhstan. Then we have Anish Giri versus Etienne Bakro, Rapport versus Volokitin, Sindarov versus Arunyan, Cheparinov, Yuyangi, Shirov, Abdusatorov, Narayanan, Vityugov, and so on and so on. So yeah. That's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Nicely taking down one of the well, potential winners of the tournament, even Jan-Krzysztof Duda, as he is such a strong and amazing player. Big congratulations to Alexandr Predke, and especially to such a game. And this is what I say, even though everyone knows, it's like you know that such moves don't necessarily work by force, and it's even sometimes easy to defend against them. You can see how it can also be very, very difficult. Even a move like pawn to g4 here, I mean, completely busting open black's position, and it's just very hard. Chess is just very hard. There you have it. So yeah, once again, really hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Daniel Taylor, Marba Kemriki, Grid Words, Logical Letters for iOS, John Gear Law Office, and Mario Milano for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and also covering the FIDE Grand Swiss until it finishes. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.